year is 2024, and quarter two is officially over. I had a pretty good quarter as far as reading is concerned. I read 12 books. I want to talk to you a little bit about each of the books that I read, whether or not I think they're worth it, what I ended up rating it, and just a quick synopsis so you can see if you're interested in reading some of these. I started off the quarter with The Assassin's Blade by Sarah J. Maas. I liked it, but it wasn't my favorite. I like Throne of Glass a lot better. If you know anything about this series, it's incredibly popular. I don't know if her ACOTAR series is more popular or if Throne of Glass is more popular, but anyways, either of these series, there are a handful of readers that are just absolutely crazy about these books, absolutely obsessed. Assassin's Blade is a compilation of short stories, although it doesn't read like a short story, because the short stories, of course, follow the same main character, which is Celaena Sardothien, and they happen chronologically right after each other. So it's almost as if it just reads like a regular novel. Technically, it's 5 short stories, but really, it didn't really feel like a short story type of experience. It was good. I ended up rating it 4 stars. It wasn't perfect for me. I did have a few complaints. When it comes to romance, there is romance in here, but I felt like it was lacking in some way. It was just missing something for me, and I wanted something more. This is actually the prequel, so everything that happens in this book happens before Throne of Glass. Now, the reading order is up for debate. I've heard a million different variations on how you should read this series. Honestly, I read Throne of Glass first, and then I read this one, but I don't think that it would have bothered me had I done it the opposite direction, if I would have read this first and then Throne of Glass. Either way, I think it's gonna make sense. You'll probably hear a lot of different opinions on it, but I liked it well enough. I don't recommend it as highly as Throne of Glass, but it was pretty good. I was entertained. I liked some short stories over others, but really, my favorite thing about this series so far is I love the main character. I love Celaena. I think she's awesome. So that was the first book. The next one was an autobiography by Fredrik Backman. He is one of my favorite authors. If you are a parent, I think you need to read this. This was so good. I ended up rating this 5 stars. It was perfect. It is a bunch of real life, true story anecdotes where Fredrik Backman is trying to raise his son, and there's just a million things going on all at once, just the regular stressful experiences that you have as a parent. He kind of dives into that, and it makes you feel seen and heard, and it's so relatable. And there were so many moments that made me chuckle and go, oh my gosh, that's my life. I've lived that. That happened to me yesterday. Just things like that. So I absolutely love this one. Highly recommend it. If you are a parent, please find yourself a copy of Things My Son Needs to Know About the World. It's short, it's really fast, chock full of excellent quotes. Fredrik Backman wrote this book because he is trying to teach his son about life in general, about love, all these very complex concepts he's trying to teach to his very young son. And he's retelling some really silly anecdotes of how he struggled as a father, and not that he was a bad father, but just things that you have to learn the hard way. So I highly recommend it. Next, we have Butcher and Blackbird. I had to know what this was all about. Nothing could have prepared me for this book. This book was so gross in a lot of ways. This was a 5-star read for me. Don't judge me. This story revolves around Sloane and Rowan. It's a love story, but they're both serial killers. Tons and tons of really raunchy sex scenes. So if you're okay with that, then this might be for you. This is not a blanket recommendation. When you recommend this book, it has to be for a very specific audience, specifically for a reader with a strong stomach who doesn't mind super gross sex scenes and some gore in there too. I thought it was 5 stars, mostly for the shock value. I thought, oh my gosh, what am I reading? What did this woman write? So 5 stars for me. Next, I read The Storied Life of A.J. Fikry. This was such a sweet book, and I highly recommend it. It's perfect for book lovers. It follows our main character, A.J. Fikry, who owns a bookstore, and his life is turned upside down. He experiences theft of a very expensive collection of Edgar Allan Poe poems that he has in his home. Somebody steals that, and then there's a mysterious package that gets left at his bookstore, and that's where the story takes you. This book was excellent. Well written, 5-star read for me. And there's a movie based off of this book that I was actually very impressed with. I feel like I rarely say that. I often feel disappointed in the movie adaptations, but I thought the movie was spectacular. I really enjoyed it. It followed the book very closely. I thought the casting was done very well. So I highly recommend that you read the book and then watch the movie because it was excellent. Next is Emily Henry's most recent romance book, Funny Story. Came out, I want to say April 2024, very recent. Oh, it's so good. This is so good. Now, I'm a huge Emily Henry fan, but I think this one's my favorite. It's between this and People We Meet on Vacation, which People We Meet on Vacation I read years ago, but I think about it all the time. I think about the characters, Poppy and Alex. But this one, That might give my number one Emily Henry spot a run for its money because this was so cute. It's kind of hard for me to explain though. It's about Daphne and Miles. They've both been broken up with. So Daphne obviously is our main character. She's a children's librarian. And oh, by the way, this book has a bunch of really cool book references. So if you're a book nerd, which if you're watching this video, you likely are, I love all the book references that Emily Henry makes in this novel. She gets broken up with her long-term boyfriend, Peter, and it's kind of out of the blue, unexpected. Peter leaves her for his childhood best friend. Her name is Petra. Petra, at the time, is dating this guy named Miles. So now Miles is also left brokenhearted. Now, in the wake of their breakup, these two end up living together, both brokenhearted, both thought that they were with the loves of their lives, and then their story just kind of takes off from there. So well written. Emily Henry just writes with, she's not your typical romance author. There is so much more depth to her stories, and seriously, I can't recommend her enough. I really struggle to read other romance novels because of her. I have an Emily Henry expectation when it comes to romance, and I don't know of another romance author that can do it as well as her. So highly recommend, 5 stars, so cute, absolutely loved it. Now we get into my first nonfiction book of quarter 2. I've been really into this YouTube thing, so I wanted to learn how to be successful in YouTube. I wanted to understand more so what I should be doing, what I shouldn't be doing. So I picked up How to Start a YouTube Channel in 2024 by Emma Payne. I tore through this one in a matter of, I think, like a day and a half because I needed to know this information. I wanted so bad to figure out how to create a successful channel on a topic that I feel very passionate about, which is obviously books and stuff, but whoops. So I really wanted to know the ins and outs. What should I be doing? What shouldn't I be doing? And this answered a ton of questions. This was 5 stars for me because I just really thought that all the information was great. All the information in this book is current and awesome. If you're looking to start a YouTube channel, which I think you should do, you have nothing to lose, absolutely nothing, except for time, maybe. You learn so much about yourself and you start discovering tics about yourself because you watch yourself on camera, and whew, that's a journey all on its own. But this book really helped me and I learned a lot. 5 stars. Next, I read The Sunlit Man by Brynne Sanderson. I love this one, but it wasn't perfect. I am normally a automatic expecting 5 stars from anything Brynne Sanderson. That wasn't the reality with this book, and I will tell you why. First of all, this is one of the coolest worlds of all time. Our main character, whose name is Nomad, is on this planet where the sun burns so bright that if you are caught in direct sunlight, it just incinerates you. You just die, you burn alive. And so there's this civilization that lives on this planet. They're constantly outrunning the sun. And what they have to do is they get on these aircrafts and they have to constantly be on the move, and they kind of like form together and break apart like puzzle pieces. So if you think of a bunch of like ships that can connect together and then break apart, they're constantly on the move, they're outrunning the sun. Nomad, in addition to running away from the sun, he's also outrunning the Night Brigade, which is after him. And so this is chock full of action. It is pretty back-to-back, very action heavy. And that was overwhelming for me at first because I was trying to adjust to this new world. And I just feel like I didn't have any room to breathe before it's boom, 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 problem, problem, problem. I was stressed out. This book gave me anxiety, but stick with it because it does get better. The conclusion is phenomenal. So I will admit, the first half of the book, I had a really tough time. I almost wanted to DNF it, but I stuck it out and I'm super glad that I did because it was worth it. But there's also a lot of conversation about how the magic system works in this book. And when I read a fantasy, I don't necessarily need to know the how. I just need to know the what, maybe the why, but there is a lot of scientific talk and, mechanical talk about the ships, and it bogged down the story for me, and I wasn't really excited to really learn the inner workings of the spacecraft or anything like that. I just trusted that it worked. I'm okay with that. So this book dragged for me the first half. Honestly, I was sitting at like a 3 stars maybe, but the end of this book made me want to give it 5 stars. But considering the journey that I had, I just couldn't do it. So I ended up with a 4-star rating on this. Highly recommend it. There are a ton of references in here to Sanderson's other Cosmere works. And there's a huge twist. Shocker. If you read Sanderson, you know to just expect the Sanderlanche, or so they call it. It's just this big reveal that he will give you just enough that you should have seen it coming, but I guarantee you probably didn't, and it's this huge, oh, aha moment, and it's wonderful. There are a couple action scenes in here that gave me chills because they were just so awesome and so cool. I recommend it. But just be prepared that the obsession will come slowly. It's not gonna be right off the bat. At least it wasn't for me. I might be the anomaly there, or maybe in the minority, but I do like it. I highly recommend it. Brandon Sanderson is my favorite fantasy author of all time. Actually, probably just favorite author in general of all time. Loved it. All right, next we have A Court of Mist and Fury. This book was funny for me because it took me, I want to say 2 months to get through it, which it is a bigger book. I mean, this is a brick right here. It is 624 pages. So it's not that long, but it is long. I liked it. I can't say I was super obsessed with it, but this is top-notch romance. I understand why people are obsessed with Akamoth, as they call it. Everyone tends to say that this is the favorite of the series, and I totally get it. I loved the romance in here, but I wish that the plot was a little more streamlined. There was just a lot going on that I didn't feel was totally necessary to the storyline, and it just kept going, and I was like, all right, Sarah J. Maas, can we please just wrap it up because I'm just done with this story? But the romance is absolutely excellent. I can't say that about the first one. So my journey with ACOTAR has been a little bit unique, a little bit unusual. I read the first one, A Court of Thorns and Roses. I did not like it at all. I thought that story was a mess. I did not love any of the characters. I especially hated Tamlin, and I know I'm not alone there. I had threw in the towel on the series, seriously. After reading the first one, I said, I am never reading another ACOTAR book. Here we are. I read A Court of Mist and Fury simply because so many people were raving about this, saying it's their favorite book. I get it. It's really good. I landed at a solid 4-star rating on this one. I can't really give you a great synopsis just because I don't want to spoil anything, but really it just follows Farah after the events of Under the Mountain. And I'll leave it at that. If you've read the first one, you know enough about this, and you've probably read this because this is everybody's favorite. So 4 stars. And then I read another nonfiction book. Oh, you may have been required to read The Diary of a Young Girl or The Diary of Anne Frank when you were in high school. So I knew a little bit about the history of Anne Frank, but I just wanted to know a little bit more. I got really curious. I have traveled to Amsterdam. I passed by the annex, and really, it just got me a little bit more curious. And this book was good. It's so sad. It is obviously a true story and talks a lot about the Holocaust, World War II. Very sad, but I think everybody needs to be exposed to our history because those are important events. And this girl, there's a reason she was such a huge influence, and just her resilience, it was so heartwarming while also being heartbreaking at the same time. So of course I gave this 5 stars. I think it's a good book for people to read. It's just, you need to make sure that you have your heart in the right place at the right time when you read something with such a heavy history. So 5 stars, I recommend it. I've read some other Scott Matthews nonfiction works and have really enjoyed them. So I think I'm gonna stick with this author because he gives me a really great nonfiction that's not overwhelming. I mean, we're talking about like maybe 150 pages. And so it's brief, it's concise, easy to understand, well written. I recommend Scott Matthews 100%. Next, I read Happy Place by Emily Henry. I will admit, this was probably my least favorite Emily Henry book, but I still liked it. I ended up with a 3.75 stars on this book just because of her other work. I do not recommend this one. This one is a lot more sad than all of her other books, and I don't know if I was totally prepared for that, which that's my fault. That's not on Emily Henry. That is just me. I mean, the title, Happy Place, makes it seem super sweet and happy and lighthearted, which some moments are. Even the cover is a little deceiving. I mean, bright pink, looks super happy. And again, there are some moments that are, but a lot of this is really heavy-hearted, very sad. The story follows Harriet and Wynne, who have been together a really long time. They appear to be the perfect couple until something happens and they break up, but they do not tell their close friend group that they have broken up, and they're all reunited at this little cottage where they're all vacationing together for the last time because one of their friends, their family owns the cottage, and they are now selling this piece of property. So this is their final time to get together during the summer and get together in this location with this specific group of friends. And there's a lot riding on kind of their relationship. So there is a reason why they don't tell people that they've broken up, but they have to spend the entire trip pretending that they are still together. So do I recommend it? Yes, but not over other Emily Henry novels. I would definitely recommend Funny Story over this one, and definitely People We Meet on Vacation, but this was still good, 3.75 stars. Maybe we'll just round up and say 4 stars. I enjoyed it. Next, we have Leather Lark because I just had to know. I had to know what came after Butcher and Blackbird. So this is the second book in the Ruinous Love trilogy. And I liked it, but I didn't like it as much as Butcher and Blackbird. I ended up giving Butcher and Blackbird 5 stars. This was a solid 4-star read for me. This follows a different set of characters. If you've read this one, you probably already know that this one follows Lark and Lachlan. And they had some great banter. I really enjoyed their love story. I felt like the plot was just missing a couple of things for me. I won't get into too much detail on that, but I still overall enjoyed it. But really, a basic overview of the story, Lachlan and Lark, they are actually forced to get married for reasons that benefit both of them. And so it's kind of like a fake relationship, fake dating. They get married, but they have some undeniable chemistry. They do have a very unfortunate first initial meeting, and I didn't love that. I didn't love their first meeting. I thought that was kind of and I thought, oh my gosh, that's going to be really tough to recover from. But then when they reconnect again, they actually don't really recognize each other, and then eventually they do. By the way, if you thought the sex scenes were bad in here, this one's so much worse. Not tasteful, super gross. If you are going to read Leather and Lark, I strongly suggest that you skip the bonus chapter in the end. It is so gross and so raunchy. I love Lachlan and Lark together, but I don't know, I like this one more, so solid 4 stars. Do I recommend it? I don't know, kind of depends on the reader and what they can and can't stomach. Lastly, I read A Court of Wings and Ruin. I have a lot of thoughts about this book. This is, of course, the third in the ACOTAR series. So for the first 3 quarters of this book, I was 100% in. I thought this was even better than this. I was like, man, I am absolutely loving this. And then I got to the final quarter of the book and I was incredibly disappointed. So did I enjoy this book? Yeah. I landed at a solid 4-star rating, but I really wish that the conclusion was done a little differently. I just didn't find it incredibly believable. I am probably in the minority here. I think most people love this series, which don't get me wrong, I love this series. Hated the first one, love this one, but this one's just like, it was good, it was fine. I really just wish that the story would have wrapped up in a different way. So I don't want to give too much away, but this, of course, follows the events of Akhmoff. And this book is chunky. It pretty much took me the entire month of June to get through. So I really did like it. I really think Sarah J. Maas could have trimmed the fat on both this one and this one, just because the stories went on for so long. And I was just over it and ready to be done with it. On both of these, I was like, all right, it's time to just be done with these books because I've been reading them for far too long. And I do think that they are too long. Yes, I'm a slow reader, but there were just unnecessary things that were happening in the plot that I think she could have cut out, honestly. That is my quarter 2 reading wrap up. I want to know what you read in quarter 2. What was your favorite? What was your least favorite? Which, speaking of, in looking at my pile of books that I read this quarter, I think I gotta go with Funny Story as my number 1. I read this in a matter of days just because I was so enthralled. I really wanted to know what happened between Miles and Daphne. I just had to know. So I think this was my top read for the quarter. As far as my least favorite book, that's really tough, but I think I have to go with The Assassin's Blade. Even though I gave this 4 stars, I don't know. The more I think about it, I don't know how much I really liked it. It was kind of funny. After I finished it, I thought, yeah, that was pretty good, but this was the first one that I read of the quarter, and now that several months have gone by, I don't know if I really liked it all that much. I think 4 stars was really generous. I'm thinking I was more like a 3, maybe 3.5. So I think this was probably my least favorite, but I don't know how much of that is contributed to the amount of time that has passed since I read it, or if I genuinely feel like the 4-star rating just doesn't hold up. Maybe in comparison to all these other books that I read. So let me know what you read in quarter 2. What was your favorite? What was your least favorite? If you haven't done so already, feel free to subscribe to my channel so you can stay up to date on bookish content. Thanks for sticking around. This was kind of a long one, but I really look forward to doing these videos. Honestly, I would love to do reading wrap-ups every month, but I don't feel like I read enough to justify doing an entire video. So here we are doing them quarterly. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you're reading something awesome, and I'll catch you on the flip side.